This is Strange New Trek, a podcast about the life and times of Captain Christopher Pike. And now your hosts. Space is very dark and full of mushrooms. Stardate Discovery Season 2, Episode 3. In the darkness of space, you may find yourself lost in a sea of fungi, but if you're lucky, you'll also find an annoying sidekick and a lost loved one, and perhaps a point of light. I'm your captain, Jeremy Vilmer, and joining me to discuss whether or not this episode is a point of light or a fart in the dark, Chris Noonian-Singh.
Hey.
What's happening, Chris?
Not a whole lot, man. What's up to you?
Oh, just Sunday afternoon, watching, Captain Pike-based episodes of Star Trek and talking about it,
Sounds like a good time.
Yeah. Talk about point of light.
Yeah.
All right. So in the opening teaser, Burnham walks the corridors of the USS Discovery. The lights suddenly dim as the computer announces that the commander training program's half marathon is approaching. Tilly falls behind as she runs through the May Ahern, and no one but Tilly is able to see her. Tilly says aloud to May that she had only gone to Musk Junior High School for 6 months before her mother was moved to another post, and that she hadn't spoken to May in years, and besides that, May died in 2252.
Yeah, I remember watching this for the first time and just being super creeped out by May, especially once you fully grasp that nobody else can see her, because, you kind of get little hints about it in episode 2, but they kind of did a Sixth Sense type thing where they made it sort of ambiguous as to whether people could see her or not. But in this one, you fully realize that nobody can see her but Tilly.
And that run through is kind of extra weirdy, when she just jams right through another person. That always gives me the icks when I see that in shows and movies, even if they're intangible, going through somebody else is kind of gross.
Yeah, and then somehow, through this whole conversation, Tilly manages to catch back up with her marathon runners and then also win.
Yes. So she's running and speaking at the same time, but not really losing her breath and then outrunning everybody else.
No, because when she first runs through May, she stops and has a quick conversation with her.
And yet still catches up to everybody else and wins.
Yeah, even though she was in the rear, bleeding up to running through May.
I have to figure, she must have just started tackling people, Chris. They didn't show it, but she was just knocking them down. That's got to be what happened, right?
Could be.
So, yeah, she runs and catches up, first across the finish line. The first officer, Saru, congratulates Tilly on her fortitude and dismisses the trainees after reminding them that there will be shadow exercises, which is a term I was completely unfamiliar with.
Yeah, I don't think I'd heard about that before.
Saru and Burnham return to the bridge. The ship is at yellow alert as an unidentified vessel is approaching. The vessel contacts the Discovery and informs them that they are a private vessel with diplomatic registry and are not authorized to reveal more. The captain is also requested to transport one aboard. Michael assumes it is Sarek, and Pike and her head to the transporter room. Pike speculates that Sarek may be there for another reason. He had informed Starfleet Command of Spock's drawing of the 7 signals in his confinement at Starbase 5, and believes word may have reached the ambassador. While Burnham reassures Pike that he did not betray his friend by following protocol, Pike remarks that that's easy to say and harder to believe. I still have questions about Spock and Pike's relationship. Are they as tight as Kirk and Spock? Because it kind of seems like it.
Yeah, that's the impression I get too. I don't think Spock would take issue. Well, the Spock that we already know, I don't think he would have an issue with Pike doing what he did with reporting stuff like that.
And movie Spock definitely wouldn't.
No. In fact, movie Spock would expect him to report that.
Yeah. When the person beams aboard, it turns out to be Amanda Grayson, Sarek's wife, Spock's mother, Michael Burnham's foster mother.
I was half expecting Winona Ryder, I'm not going to lie.
You know what, though? It's Mia Kirshner playing her here, right? And she kind of looks like Winona Ryder.
Yeah, a little bit.
But yeah, that would have been cool if they could have got Winona Ryder just to kind of keep a visual constant, That would have been kind of wild. It was Jane Wyman that played her on the original series. I think that was the mom from Lost in Space or something, too, you know?
She was kind of old in the original series, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was. She was older. Amanda and Michael embrace, and Amanda tells her not to react. Spock needs their help, and Burnham is the only person Amanda could turn to. So that's our teaser, even though I would have called that Act 1, but, that's our teaser breakdown.
Well, yeah, so the wiki breaks it down like that, but if you really notice, there's like an A and a B story going on here at the same time. All this stuff with Spock, and, well, I guess there's even a C story. The A story is kind of in the background. That's the stuff with Spock. Then the B story is probably Tilly and May. And then the C story is where Act 1, well, where the wiki says Act 1 starts. So given all the plots and subplots going on here, it'd be real hard to break it into acts.
One of the things I liked about Star Trek The Next Generation is their act structure was always very much, whatever happens, commercial break, that's Act 1. Whatever happens next, commercial break, that was Act 2. It was very consistent. I always liked it because hey, here's your setup, here's your danger music, there's the first commercial, Act 1 is done. Okay, L'Rell, the Klingon Chancellor, addresses the High Council, which looks a bit more Klingon now than they did last season.
Oh yeah, that's borne out in a conversation Ash and Michael have about the Klingons growing their hair back finally.
Yeah. So they kind of lessened the makeup a little bit. They kept like some of the different coloring that they put in, but they gave everybody long hair and mustaches and kind of went a little bit yellow peril with the looks a little bit. Well, look, that's where the Klingons kind of came from. They were a cross between communist fear and yellow peril. She shows a projection of the new D7 cruiser, a ship meant for a unified Klingon empire, not house by house combat.
Yeah, definitely a ship that we are used to seeing now. The Warbird, it looks like, or at least an early version of it.
Yeah, it's the D7 is what they called it on the original show. I didn't know Klingons used the Roman alphabet, but okay, well, I'm cool with it. And she says that Voke, which is Ash Tyler with a samurai ponytail and a scruffy beard, will oversee the new ship construction. Colshaw insults Tyler and says, kind of like letting human pets sleep in your bed, kind of making an insinuation of bestiality in a way.
No, that's not how I took it. I took it as, I think, so we know from season 1 of Discovery that Ash Tyler is like two personalities, Volk and the human Ash Tyler. Somehow they put Volk into Ash's body. I think the upper echelon of the Klingons know about that, but they still look at him as human because that's what he looks like. I don't think they necessarily all the way believe Volk's in there. But I think the insinuation was more like, that's a human play toy for you. He should be in the bedroom, not out here doing this.
Oh, see, and the way I kind of read into it, because you remember the previous season, they ate Captain Giorgio. And now they're talking about a human pet. And I was thinking of it, they're kind of pointing out the species difference here. Like almost like, you shouldn't be running around things outside the bloodlines, basically, from different worlds. And maybe I read into it a little too far.
I just got it as, because her and Volk had a relationship and now Volk's inside Tyler, they understand that she probably uses him sexually too. And to keep him in her bedroom for that purpose and not out here doing the political stuff. Your insight could be right, too. I don't know.
I kind of was reading into for the most offensive thing you could find, And then Colshaw references the dots as an omen, talks about blood falling on the Klingon Empire. Some more words are exchanged. Tyler threatens Colshaw and attempts to wipe the war paint from his face. I kind of like the way they're handling the Klingons here because even though the makeup is still different, they are more recognizable to us.
Yeah, I still think they look super weird given how Klingons have been portrayed in the past. But I don't know. My thing is some of them have like super large backs of their heads. It looks weird.
Yeah. They do have that extra pointy melon thing going on.
Yeah, but going back to Ash's move to try to wipe that paint off, I'm surprised I didn't get him killed right there. I was just waiting for it.
Going off of Ash's look here a little bit, because he's a little scruffy, he's got his hair in a top knot. You know the kid that wrote our theme song, Miguel?
Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking he might be a Klingon in a human body.
He got that same look.
He's got that same look. He's got like scruffy beard and a top knot, listens to like really loud music. I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but I kind of think Miguel might be a Klingon shaved down into human shape.
Oh, man, maybe.
Weirder things have happened, right?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so then we cut back to the Discovery. Burnham and Amanda discuss the 7 signals. Amanda reveals Sarek told her about them. Amanda had gone to Starbase 5, and no one would give her an update on Spock or let him see him or give her his personal effects or anything. So she did the only thing a mother could do in that situation. She stole his medical records. Then we cut back to Kronos. Laurel's uncle, whose name I cannot pronounce, Ujili, I think is what it is, but I'm not 100% sure on that pronunciation.
That's close enough, man.
But it's Laurel's uncle. He arrives at the Chancellor's residence and refuses to engage with Tyler. Tyler vents his frustration that despite everything he's done in her cause, the other members of the Klingon High Council still don't see him as a true Klingon. Laurel counters that it shouldn't matter what other people think, it should just matter what she thinks. Sounds like a little bit of abusive gaslighting to me, but what the hell?
Well, the conversation you're talking about happens after Tyler's meeting with Laurel's uncle. So Tyler's complaining that every time he walks into a room where Ujili, I guess that's where we're going to go with for his name. Every time he walks in a room with Ujili, everybody stops talking. And so he's frustrated about that. And he starts the whole thing like, what are you not telling me? And this and that. And that's the scene where he finds out he has a kid with Laurel, or at least Voke does.
Oh, but the baby's a little albino, just like he was. And he seems a little disconcerted by the whole process. She lays a big kiss on him, and he kind of acts traumatized, and he tells her that for him that triggers a memory of trauma being suffered at her hands, and everything feels like a violation.
Yeah. Well, he also says, part of me is liking this because I'm Volk, but the human side of me, you may as well just be raping me. That's got to be a weird thing to have those two, I don't know if you'd call them consciousness, but I don't remember exactly what the deal was when they sort of put Volk in Tyler's body, but it's got to be super frustrating for him to have dual memories, I guess, and they are opposite of each other.
Yeah, one where you're in love and one where you were held as like a sex prisoner.
Basically, because that was the whole thing during the last season he was having such a problem with, because he wasn't activated yet. Volk wasn't activated yet. So Ash was getting all these flashbacks of what he perceives as rapes, but Laurel perceives as, making love with Volk.
It's just his memory was all stirred at that point.
Yeah, and it seems like in some way it still is at this point.
Yeah, I've still got a lot of questions about the Ash Tyler character and, what was what, because the way I understood it, there was no Ash Tyler before Volk had his bones shaved and terrifying surgeries done to him, and then a second personality program to him. But then I look at it and go, well, there had to have been an Ash Tyler, otherwise they couldn't have just stuck him on a Federation ship.
Well, at the point that he joined Discovery, and this is all going off like my memory of stuff I watched a while ago and haven't looked into much more, so I could be wrong on my interpretation of this, but if you remember the point at which Ash got on the ship, they were in the middle of a war, so the background checking may have not been super high priority. You look like a human. Yeah, I'd have to go back and look at exactly what they did, but to me, it's not very far-fetched that he was able to get on there, especially, like you said, if there was a Ash Tyler already. There obviously had to have been, because there's memories from both Ash and Volk in his body right now.
His set of memories could just be, false memories that were implanted, but for him just to be left as because he was freed by Lorca and brought back to the Discovery, and At some point.
Oh, yeah, because that's when they meet Mud for the first time.
Yeah. Because at some point, somebody would have like, hey, let's get your fingerprints and make sure you're not an Orion traitor or something. And so he had to have checked out somewhere with somebody.
Yeah. Or, I mean, maybe his false memories were just believable enough to Lorca that they didn't bother, because Lorca was in prison with him, and they went through quite a little bit, as I remember. So it could be that he had that trust built up enough to where it wasn't a thing.
And Lorca kind of had other plans that he was working on. You know, he had his own set of priorities.
Yeah, that's true, too. He was basically like I don't want to say a double agent, but sort of.
Yeah, it was more or less, yeah. So we cut back to the Discovery, and it's Amanda, Burnham, and Pike. Amanda tells Pike that she was right to come to him for help. Unfortunately, Pike replies he cannot open the medical file as it would violate regulations. Burnham points out that there was a precedent in Starfleet case law. Then Pike opens a communication with Captain Diego Vela on Starbase 5. High priority. Vela apologizes for not returning Pike's earlier calls. Pike asks for an update on Spock. Vela tells him that Spock's case is classified. And Pike's starting to get a little irritated here. As his captain, he should know what's going on with Spock's progress. Vela then explains that Spock is in fact wanted for murder. He's killed 3 of his doctors and fled the starbase.
When that popped up, I was just like, what is going on?
Well, and then to make things even more complicated, somebody stole his medical files, so they're pretty sure there's like a conspiracy afoot, which I thought was kind of funny, because, you know, what a bad time to do that, you know? After the call ends, Amanda, Pike, and Burnham don't believe that Spock could be a murderer, coming back to kind of our general theme again this season is faith, and this is their faith in Spock, that he's not a murderer, you know? And then Pike orders Burnham to open the Spock's files because it's less of a regulation buster if she does it, I guess.
And that's an order.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the
He orders her to break into it.
You're not getting out of this, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I guess we find that Amanda's the one that stole the medical files.
We learned that in the previous segment, but yeah, that she was the one who stole them. It's one of those things, it's just like the comedy of bad timing, you know, like, oh, I'm going to steal my son's files and, you know, I'll figure out what's going on. And they're like, now we know there's something worse happening because his medical files are missing. So, okay. Burnham and Amanda review Spock's medical files. It goes back to talking about when Spock was a child and that he had some learning problems and some emotional empathy issues. He couldn't really identify with other people. And this began to make Amanda worry that her son was a psychopath. So we can see there might be a little doubt in her about the murder capability on Spock's behalf, you know?
For as much as Spock is always hailed as a great example of Vulcan logic, I feel like he displays empathy a lot more than what he would admit. You constantly see that in his character. So it was a little weird hearing somebody say he is has extreme empathy deficiency.
Yeah. Well, like last night, so MeTV every Saturday night, late at night, they play an episode of Star Trek. They play it in order, so you don't really get a choice about what you're seeing. It's just whatever episode's on. So it was the Naked Time or the Naked Now. One of those is the Next Gen episode, and one's the TOS episode, where they get a drunk virus.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah, and there's the scene where Kirk and Spock are talking, and Spock's having a meltdown, and he tells Kirk, when I feel friendship for you, I feel nothing but shame. And then Kirk just slaps the shit out of him. Pull yourself together, man. Which I forget, but that happened a few times back on the original Star Trek where Kirk would have to just slap the shit out of him. Just like, get your head back in the game. Come on.
Yeah, Spock, logic and all that. I get it, but we're friends. Calm it down.
Yeah. I was watching that last night. That cracked me up. I was just like, oh, yeah. There's Spock and his lack of empathy right there. But so Amanda's like worrying that her son was a psychopath. They start going through Spock's files. Amanda recognizes some of Spock's drawings as a child and one that he called the Red Angel, which he had seen as a child, and the computer indicates an incoming transmission, and Burnham leaves to take a call on her quarters.
Yeah, this is that call that I was referencing earlier between Burnham and Ash Tyler. Yeah, basically, he's reporting on what's going on with the Klingon Empire. Even though they're outwardly united, inwardly, they're starting to fracture. that would be a bad thing for Starfleet if that happened. So he wanted to go ahead and let Burnham know. But yeah, this is when she sees his beard and hair and is like, oh, well, in the post-war era, we're growing our hair back.
Yeah. Yeah, they do a nice job of kind of trying to stuff in some facts like, oh, yeah. Klingons were normally hairy. It's cool. We just tend to manscape during war. But he also says that he's beginning to worry that his presence is actually harming L'Rell and her plan.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like what we already said, though, given that even though I think some of the upper echelons of the Klingon rulers do kind of know that Vok's in there, he looks like a human. I kind of get it from their point of view. For all intents and purposes, that's a human I'm looking at. He has the same rhetoric as Vok does, obviously. He is by L'Rell's side. So that part is right. But, dude, you're a human. I'm sorry.
Yeah, to me, you'll never be anything but a human.
I get L'Rell's point, too. Both sides. I feel both sides have equally valid concerns with the position they're in with Tyler. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, yeah, it's kind of a small background story, but it is an interesting story, kind of where they're going with this and how it turns out, Back on the bridge of the Discovery, and Saru welcomes the trainee candidates to the shadow test. This infamous shadow test.
That's what that means.
Yeah, this infamous shadow test. Yeah,
because when you said it before, I was like, yeah, I heard it in the episode, but I already blanked on what it is. But yeah, that makes sense now. They're the shadow officer.
Yeah, because when they first said it, I'm like, what is that? It's like that part in Link where your own shadow attacks you,
Or some Candlestein activity.
Yeah. Tilly is nervous and extra edgy because of May, and she, of course, gets paired off with Captain Pike. And he can tell he's really trying to, let her relax and chill out and, do whatever. And May starts talking about, well, that can't be the captain. He's smaller and blonder, and so now Tilly's thinking, well, is she looking for Lorca? So there's some miscommunication going on here, right?
Oh, yeah, she also says he's not funny, but terrifying. So I guess in Tilly's brain, that's Lorca.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of here. So Tilly, starts speaking out loud to May. And then she starts to explain herself, and then she realizes she sounds crazier than Garth Vizar by doing this, It's a deep cut there. We'll know who our Real Trek fans are now, Tilly just flat out quits the training program and bounces.
I felt so bad for Tilly in this moment, man, because she's been wanting to be an officer, or not an officer. She already is an officer, but a captain of a ship one day. And if they think you're seeing people and talking crazy stuff, that's probably not going to happen.
Well, they really prefer that their ship's captains don't hallucinate frequently, That's one thing I've learned about Starfleet. So she quits program, bounces. We cut back to Kronos. Now Tyler's rubbing his hands trying to get the paint off.
Oh, yeah. I was wrong earlier because I thought this moment was earlier when we were talking about the uncle.
Yeah, that's okay. I just went ahead and rolled with it. Because I started wondering, shoot, I may have just left that out. But he's doing the proverbial out damn spot with his hands,
Yeah, some more Shakespeare stuff in Star Trek. Imagine that.
He notices L'Rell's uncle, Ujili, spying on him. When he confronts the uncle, it is revealed that Vok and L'Rell have a little albino Klingon baby that they haven't named. Yeah. We come back from the commercial, and that's what we discover, that she says she's never even seen the baby or named it, and they've been keeping it a secret by keeping it here in this room. Tyler sees the baby, and you kind of get the sense that he kind of feels complete. This kind of gives him a sense of direction or belonging or something. But then he tells her that even though he can't remember his love for her as Vok, they'll build a new love story together now. So we cut back to the Discovery, and Amanda tells Burnham about Spock and the Red Angel. Burnham had run away when we cut back to their childhood. And Burnham had run away as a child when logic extremists, and I want to stop after this and kind of talk about how much I hate this concept, had bombed a learning center. Spock pinpointed Burnham's location so Sarek could rescue her. And apparently there's a version of time where she was killed by this creature out in Vulcan's Forge, but because Spock has a flash from the Red Angel of her location, he's able to direct his parents to go pick her up, and they get her out of there in the nick of time. And then when Spock says he got the location from the Red Angel, his parents just kind of assume he logicked it out and then had some crazy flight of fancy, because apparently Spock was quite the imaginative kid for a Vulcan. But they kind of pulled them apart. And this is when Burnham admits to Amanda that she saw the Red Angel at the first signal back at the Hiawatha, and that she was the one who caused the huge rift between her and Spock when they were kids by being kind of a shithead to him and driving him away.
Yeah, because they thought, Burnham thought that the logic extremists were targeting Spock's family because of her.
So Amanda and her they have their own little riff here. So Amanda kind of storms off all angry and says, basically, I'm not going to need you. I'll go find Spock. I know the logic extremists are a thing that came from Enterprise. I hate this idea. I think this is the most ridiculous. Logic terrorists are what we're given here by the Vulcans. Oh, we're so into logic, we're going to blow up school buses full of children.
There is a certain amount of sense that makes. Not that I am advocating for terrorism, but I could see the logic in their logic about being terrorists. They were having trouble convincing the leaders of Vulcan to pull out of the Federation. And so because of that, talking didn't work. So now we have to resort to violence. There is a certain logic to it. Obviously, again, I don't advocate terrorism. From their point of view, I understand why they were doing it to an extent. I don't think it's dumb. I mean, maybe calling them logic extremists is dumb. Maybe that part's dumb.
Attacking Sarek's family for not being logical when they've just raised a human to be logical.
Well, that wasn't the whole point, though. Some of the whole point was the fact that Sarek fathered a child with a human, and then on top of that, fostered a human. So that was their problem. So they're kind of like the Klingons in a way with Ash and L'Rell. So it's a similar thing here. You are kind of going outside the race here, and we don't appreciate that. How that would convince Vulcan to pull out of the Federation, I don't get that part.
Yeah, and I would think that, when you're having a conversation with people who are at least using Socratic logic, racism is not logic. It's, hey, we should be totally insular and racist. No, we need trade, and it'd be good to have allies and some cultural exchange.
That's fair.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense to me, No insular society has ever gone on to be a great society. All right, so at the Mokai estate, which is L'Rell's clan, L'Rell and Tyler enter the inner chamber to find Luigi dead. I'm going with Luigi, man. He's Uncle Luigi.
His name's changed a couple times now, but yeah.
That's why you can't tell the difference between an Italian and a Klingon accent. They find him dead and hanging from the ceiling. And the child is taken from its cradle. Just then, Cole Shaw contacts them, holding the child in his arms. He explains that the pain on his face that Tyler tried to wipe off was saturated with sensor implants that act as a listening device. He had intended to only eavesdrop and kind of catch on to what L'Rell's political strategy was, but just happened through the moment of luck to discover all of L'Rell's secrets and about the baby.
Oh, and the fact that Tyler communicated with Michael.
Yep. I mean, he got it all, 30 minutes of all bad decisions all landed right in his lap.
The paint you put on your face is saturated with sensor implants that act as listening devices. Why? Why would you assume that Tyler would do that? Or maybe he was just trying to goad one of them into making a move like that. So I guess I'll believe it.
I would actually need to go back and re-listen to some parts. Were they already making a thing of taking off the war paint? Or taking off the clan paint?
Yeah, L'Rell basically makes that. She's like, I see you've come here with your normal house paint, but we're not doing that no more. We're all one culture. And then he does start goading her and Ash.
So it didn't matter which one of them. Well, and no, that's not true either, because you would know if you go after L'Rell, it's going to be Ash that comes to kick your ass. You know this going in because he's been the right-hand guy to her for whatever period of time this has been now.
Yeah, and plus it seemed like that was a cultural thing anyway, that the torchbearer would be the one to handle any matters like that. So, yeah, okay. I'll take it.
So, okay. Well, yeah, because I was thinking that was kind of a sloppy setup, but now that we've talked it out a little bit, I'm like, no, okay, it actually worked. So let's see here. Colshaw demands that Laurel and Tyler meet him at the Chancellor's residence, where he will return their child to them if she hands over control of the government. Seems like a fair trade if you like kids, I guess. Tilly enters the quarters she shares with Burnham. Burnham looks like she's been having a little crying fit there of her own. Burnham says Saru's been trying to get a hold of Tilly. Tilly catches her up with what's going on and says that she's been seeing ghosts ever since the accident with the meteor. As she begins to cry, May gets confused, and then Tilly tells Burnham that May doesn't know what crying is, and this like flips a switch in Burnham's head. She's like, you show me a teenage girl who's never cried. And then Burnham goes, you don't need sickbay, you need Stamets. Dr. Stamets, microcologist MD, or whatever that is.
He's a mycologist.
Yeah, he's one of those.
Or astromycologist, sorry.
Yeah. So we cut to the Chancellor's residence. Colshaw holds out a document of abdication. Laurel reminds him that she is still Chancellor. He dismisses her as a Federation puppet. A creature who lies with humans. See, this is where I started getting the bestiality thing started to hit me. Was he accuses her of being a creature that lies with humans. I don't know, I guess maybe racist would be better than bestiality is the proper term.
Yeah, I think that's the word I took issue earlier when you mentioned it.
Speciesist, I guess, would be the more correct.
Yeah, because a Klingon would look at a human as below them and on the hierarchy, I guess.
So, he wants her to sign a document abdicating power, and she basically realizes that once she signs that, he's going to kill them. So she says, you better kill us both, because either one of us live through this, we're going to hunt you down like a dog and, kill you. Then a fight breaks out, and Laurel and Tyler, they do pretty good. They hold their own pretty well here for going against some bodyguards and stuff, but Colshaw has some weird little paralysis machine that I've never seen in Star Trek before.
I think they had stuff like that in the Mirror universe in Discovery Season 1.
Oh, could be. Maybe they did.
Which makes sense when you see who comes next.
Right, yeah. So he captures them with like a paralysis device, and basically it's gonna strangle them. They're gonna just not be able to breathe. So he walks over, cuts Laurel's hand, gets a fingerprint on the abdication. Then, well, yeah, like you alluded to there, a cloaked figure, I guess, shows up, cloaked and hooded or something.
Yeah.
And mows down whatever remaining guards there are, sticks Colshaw in a bubble, and then frees Laurel and Tyler. Laurel gets up, kills Colshaw, and then we learn that the savior here was none other than Emperor Giorgio.
Yeah, even though she says, no, I'm retired captain of the
Shinjo. So now, Section 31 has kind of got their own plans for the Klingon Empire, and Philippa Giorgio is the one who's going to kind of ramrod the whole situation. She asked Laurel what she would think about killing Tyler and the baby. Laurel's like, nah, I'm not really into that. And then she's like, oh yeah, you don't really have a choice. So we're left with some evilness hanging in the air for a moment. They kind of try to figure out why Giorgio's been spying on them, and she admits to being a consultant for Starfleet security.
Her mission was to make sure Laurel stayed in power.
Yeah. So now we cut back over to the mushroom lab. Saru, Stamets, Tilly, and Burnham talk really fast like an episode of the Gilmore Girls, so it's kind of hard to follow. May recognizes Stamets and calls him the captain. So now we realize what she was talking about was the dude who flew the machine as captain. They're trying to figure out how Tilly may have been infected by a fungi. And then she remembers having one of the spores fall on her in the Mirror universe.
Well, she didn't exactly remember one spore falling on her, but the whole room was littered with them as they were leaving. And then Stamets theorizes that one must have attached itself to her.
Yeah. So she got hit with spores in the mirror universe, and we're pretty sure that that's where they came from. She wants it removed. May's kind of fighting with him. He's going to use the dark matter to pull it out of her. They get it out of her, and they secure the fungi in a quarantine force field. Now we cut back to Kronos again. L'Rell addresses the High Council, revealing that she had borne Voke's child, and that she had made Tyler her torchbearer to honor Voke. She then tells them that Tyler had murdered her son and betrayed her to the Federation, claiming that the Empire was fracturing, and that if Colshaw had not intervened, she too would be dead. She then lifts Tyler's severed head, along with the head of the baby, before hurling Tyler's head into the chasm in front of her. She called Colshaw's sacrifice a lesson, and said that she was going to sacrifice as well and only have one child. Instead, she tells the council that they are her children now, and she's going to raise this family to greatness. She tells them not to call her Chancellor, but instead to call her a fiercer title, Mother. I like what they're doing here a little bit. It doesn't fit with what I know about Klingons, but...
Well, I was watching it earlier today, and my wife was like, ew, why? But I was like, well, to me, obviously the Klingons have a lot of real-world influences, but this part, more than anything, reminded me of like a Norse-style culture. You know, actually, like we talked about in the last episode, where the leader of the little cult there was the All-Mother. I think it's a similar type thing here.
Oh, yeah, because the original idea before they were called Klingons, they were space Vikings is what they were alluding to. All right, so meanwhile, we cut to a strange ship in the orbit of Boreth. Now, this was a nice callback here. You remember when Worf went on his vision quest? And Kahless was reborn?
I remember the vision quest stuff, but I can't recall.
Well, that was on this planet that they're at now, Boreth. Tyler, who is still alive, and he's holding his still alive baby, remarks on how Giorgio had been able to synthesize their heads down to the smallest genetic detail, and asks what kind of organization could have that kind of technology. In response, Giorgio shows him the black badge of Section 31. Again, Section 31 is one of the things they added to Star Trek and Deep Space Nine I've never been real hip to. Giorgio asks if Tyler really wants his son to become a monk. Tyler replies it is what L'Rell wants, and he wants the boy will be raised among the most devout followers of Kahless. He'll never know his parents, and he'll never leave the monastery, and he'll be in good, solid hands. He won't be threatened by anybody, and he'll just kind of be set forward there.
I don't take an issue with Section 31 as a organization. Like, it makes sense that in a military-ish type organization like Starfleet that they would have something that could go out and do black ops and stuff. It doesn't make any sense to me that they have their own badge that definitely looks like a Starfleet badge.
Yeah, see, that's the thing to me. The United Federation of Planets would definitely have a black ops division. I don't know that Starfleet would be the right group, or that having a clandestine group that has a recognizable badge. Like, oh, hey, look at that black badge. I guess you're with that secret group that we don't know exists called Section 31.
Yeah, I mean, it could be they only wear it on the ship, but I don't know. When I realized that they had badges, because I feel like every other time they've been, well, I guess the only time I've ever really seen Section 31 was in the second Kelvin timeline Star Trek movie. I don't recall that they had their own badges like this.
No, I don't remember that either. And that's part of my problem. It's, you get these action movie writers and they immediately zero in on Starfleet's Black Ops division. And, and I don't know that it's still the case, but they've been working on a Section 31 spinoff, and it's just like, of course you guys are, because you want to make Mission Impossible space.
And I mean, hey, cool though. That'll call out to a certain kind of fan. I mean, it probably won't be for me. I'll give it a shot. But I'm with you, like, if I wanted to watch a Star Trek action stuff, I would just watch the Kelvin movies.
Yeah, exactly. We've got something.
Or Star Wars, either way.
But I guess one of the things now is, Chris, and this is one of those things you got to keep in mind. This isn't like the old days. We're not just going to have one Star Trek series, and then when it folds, we'll start another one. We're going to have a whole bunch of different moving parts. And, we're going to have cartoons for kids, and we're going to have cartoon for the Rick and Morty fans.
Well, man, I mean, I hate to keep going back to Marvel, but Marvel's really the one that proved that you could do it and do it well. say what you will about some of the individual movies. You definitely won't have ones that are stronger than the others, but the overall arc is the main thing, and the consistency for the most part, except for those, minute little things that don't matter a whole lot. Like Marvel proved that you could do it across a vast amount of content.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And that's one of the things, because they had the Netflix series and the regular TV stuff going and the movies going. Plus audiobooks or something else that they had or still have, or maybe it's podcasts.
I don't know that they tie into the cinematic universe, but yeah, Marvel has definitely started putting out, I guess, audio dramas. I guess is the closest thing you could call them. They're like fully, full cast and sound effects and all that. Big productions, actually. They have one about Wolverine. They got another one about like the older Star-Lord. I'm sure there are a couple others that I'm not thinking about, but yeah, mainly I'm talking about the MCU.
No, but you're right. They're the ones that have all the moving parts that they've more or less, there's been a few slip-ups, but more or less they've kept it all coordinated.
Yeah, even through different writers and directors and all that. I don't know what happens to the MCU if Kevin Feige ever leaves Marvel, but it seems to be rest on his shoulders as far as all that continuity. But regardless, I don't know why DC doesn't look at that and follow suit, but that's a different podcast.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So I'm fine with Star Trek doing this. This is another one of my favorite IPs, so I'm here for all of it.
I was just thinking, now that we're going to have so many different things and they're going to rotate, because I think we'll hit the point where we probably have Star Trek throughout the majority of the year, but it'll be different stuff as it goes. And there'll be things there for different kind of viewers. You'll have your more mature character pieces like Picard. You'll have your more gung-ho stuff like Discovery, with the long-form storytelling. And then for those of us who are like me and you, who like old Star Trek, it looks like we're going to have Strange New Worlds. And for the guys that want Fast and Furious in space, there's going to be Section 31.
Yeah, I'm here for it all.
Yeah, I was going to complain, but you know what? Now that I'm saying it out loud to you, I suddenly go like, oh, but there is a way for this to work.
And again, like with the Marvel stuff I was talking earlier, if I see a little snippet or a picture or something of something that hasn't come out yet, obviously my first instinct is complain about it. But then I'm like, okay, nope, this is Marvel. They have a proven track record, so let me not freak out about this, because I assume once we see it in practice, it's going to be good, or at least, not terrible. So Paramount so far has my trust.
So Giorgio then remarks that Tyler should stick around with her band of merry misfits. From the upper deck, Leland orders the helm to go to warp. He remarks that Control values Tyler's skill, but her recruiting speech needs some work. Giorgio tells him not to give her any notes and that Tyler was in. Did you find her saying don't give me any notes, does throwing that kind of showbiz lingo in there pull you out? Because it does me.
Not really. Because, Giorgio is a part of this organization on her own terms. And while Section 31's mechanisms might line up with hers sometimes, Giorgio is still her own thing. So she's not sure, you're my captain, but I'm not trying to take no orders from you. I got the man, so shut up and color. That's the way I took it.
That's fair. That kind of covers it. Overall, what'd you think of this episode?
I thought it was real good. The stuff with Tilly is starting to ratchet up. Even though the thing was pulled out of her, that's not the end of that whole situation. The stuff with Spock is still puzzling at this point. The first time I watched this through, I couldn't even begin to speculate on what was going on with him. Because it was just like, wow, all this stuff is so out of character for what I know of Spock. So I'm not sure what the heck's going on right now.
When I first watched this, I don't think I knew that Spock had been cast by this point. I still thought we were never going to see him. I thought it was going to be like Supergirl in that first season where she'd talk about her cousin and they'd show a guy wearing a cape in silhouette, but you never actually saw Superman. I was kind of wondering if they were going to do that. And then as we learned, no, we meet, we meet the old Enterprise crew person by person. And I was pretty excited by that. I like this episode. I'm kind of hit and miss with Klingon stuff. When I was younger, I liked the Klingon stuff quite a bit. But then as I aged, I kind of realized it's kind of like Nietzschean philosophy. Like to a teenager, it's really cool. And then you hit you hit adulthood and you're kind of like, oh, that's kind of dumb. And then you get a little bit older than that and you realize, you know what, I didn't read it right either one of those two times. And it's okay.
Yeah, aside from what they physically look like, I really dig what they're doing with the Klingons here.
Yeah, it's an interesting spin on it, finding out that there was this mother character. I don't know how much more of this we're going to see.
Yeah, me and my wife were talking about that today. I hate giving spoilers for Discovery, but, if you have not seen past season 2 of Discovery, I guess don't listen to the next 30 or 40 seconds here. But once they get in there, the time travel stuff, I was kind of wondering, like, how's all this going to play out? Then me and my wife were talking about, I was like, you know what? I bet Pike kind of gives a continuation on what's happening in this timeline, at least somewhat. It has to, because the Klingons play such a big part of, well, at least they're setting up the Klingons to play such a big part of what's going on in the Federation down the line. So I got to think that some of this stuff we're seeing right now will get touched back on in Strange New Worlds.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I would have to think so. I mean, I know they're going to do a lot of exploration, which is what I'm looking forward to. But they're going to have to talk about what's going on in the bigger universe as well.
Yeah, I don't think you'll ever get like that true Planet of the Week stuff like we got in TOS. I still think you're going to have these season arcs as well. I could be wrong, but given the way storytelling is done today, especially with like the TV show type format, I don't think you're going to get a straight Planet of the Week thing like we got with the original series. I mean, even then there was some little longer arcs there, but not much. So yeah, I think we're going to see stuff like that, especially how the Enterprise fits in with the Federation at large. But, obviously I hope the emphasis is on that Planet of the Week stuff. But I'm also hoping there's like some little arcs playing out in the background too.
Well, they're going to have to do character arcs and that sort of thing. They've already programmed Pike. He knows what's going to happen to him. That's kind of an interesting thing. I don't know how I feel that's going to work over the long haul, but he knows that after he's promoted to fleet captain, he's going to get fried in a Class J cruiser exercise ship. And it's just kind of an interesting take,
Yeah. I can't wait till we get to that episode again, because that's something I'll want to revisit as far as like the conversation around what he saw. But yeah, overall, I like this season. I like the storylines that are going on. So yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, no, I'm good with it. I never hated Discovery as much as some of the people let on, and I was actually really excited by season 2 with Pike coming in, because again, I've had this interest in Pike as a captain since I was a kid, and here, holy cow, here we're going to see some stuff he did, Well, Chris, I guess I should probably wrap it up. So, where are we headed next week?
Yeah, so next week, Pike is investigating a murder in an unhealthy city. His ship is destroyed by a monstrous time machine, and with the help of an uncultured archaeologist, he must journey into the void in order to save his children.
That sounds like a great episode. I can't wait to check that one out. All right. Well, everybody, if you like what you heard or didn't like what you heard, you got something to say to us, hop on over to strangenewtrekshow.com. We got a number of ways to reach us there. I want to give a big thank you to Miguel Esparza for doing our theme music here at Strange New Trek, and we will see you on the next Planet of the Week. Tilly falls behind as she runs through. Quiet, you. They shouldn't allow dogs on starships. That's all I'm going to say. That Jonathan Archer, he started a real problem.